Welcome everybody to our July 2011 R3 customer briefing. It wasn't that long ago in May that we brought R2 to you with full iOS integration for BlackLight. And we know this is a quick turnaround, but we had some features that we really wanted to get out to the market that people have been asking for. And so we're excited to walk you through some of these features and, as usual, answering questions about the product in general. So let's get started here. I'm Paul Jordan, and I'm joined by Drew Fahey. We'll walk you through some of the highlights of what we've done, and then we'll do a little bit more in-depth demo of the actual features. For the process, we'll take all the questions at the end once we go through everything, but please feel free to type in your questions as they come to your mind. We'll queue them up and answer them in order, and hopefully we can answer everything, but as usual, we're always happy to follow up with people individually if you have additional questions. So what have we done in R3? Well, one of the things that we were most focused on was gaining additional image support. And so both for Mac OS X images and devices that you've looked at, Mac Pros, Mac laptops, anything like that, E01 is obviously a widely used standard and something that we have incorporated and excited to bring to you. In addition to the E01, L01, we included Smart along the Mac OS X line, and then within iOS, MPE, Jonathan's method, Celebrite, and iExam. The hope here is just to give you a lot more flexibility. As usual, BlackLight works with traditional raw forensic images, the Mac side, DMGs, and the like. We recognize that these are widely used formats, and you guys collect a lot of data in various different methods, and so we've incorporated this so that BlackLight will work directly and support all these platforms. The other thing that we added was a new tool that is now ships within EW Mounter, and we're really excited about this because it's going to bring to you some very robust and interesting functionality meant as a complement, really not a substitute. And so this tool will directly mount an E01 image, for example, and it will allow you to more quickly look at what the suspect's data was in particular. So it's not exactly a triage method, but we look at it as such so that you don't have to wait for BlackLight to fully parse the entire directory structure and file structure. And instead, if you know where evidence is, you can directly look at the directory structure if there's files within the home directory you want to get at. But one of the most important things is that BlackLight, like any other tool, won't natively open and look at every possible file of the last how many years that Mac's been available. And so the unique thing with being able to directly mount and look is that for older file types, you can take advantage of the suspect's software to run an application and look at that file directly. And so it really offers flexibility, again, to complement what we can do in BlackLight in your investigation and building a report, to offer you direct access to the device and image and some quick abilities to look for files and then, again, open applications natively. We hope you find this functionality pretty compelling. We thought it was important enough to get it in and move it out with this R3 shipment. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Drew, who's going to walk you through these features and a couple new things that we put in the R3 release. Drew?
Thanks, Paul. Rather than showing you slides, I'm going to jump right in and actually share BlackLight with you guys, BlackLight and EW Mounter. And I'm actually going to share my full desktop so you can see that. So you should be able to see my full desktop now with BlackLight showing. But before I show you the new features of BlackLight, the first thing I'll show you is the tool that Paul just got finished telling you about, which is our EW Mounter tool. And that tool is specific to running on Mac OS X. So you'll notice if you download BlackLight for Windows, you won't see this tool in there. So it currently only runs on OS X, but it's a pretty simple tool. You just start it, and you'll see it's running up here, and it's a very simplistic user interface. You can either go to the File menu and choose to open an E01 file, or you can literally drag and drop an E01 file onto the window. So I just dragged this particular E01, which is one we downloaded from one of the tool testing sites, and it actually has 5 partitions in it. And you can see from the EW Mounter window, the 5 partitions are listed here. You click on it, It tells you what the actual MD5 hash is of the EO1 file. We can verify that to validate that the hash does match. As you can see, it's verified. And it also automatically mounts all 5 of those partitions. So you can see those here within these 5 windows. So this happens to be an OS 10 journaled file system. We can see any of these pictures. We can quick look them. We can open them. If they are movies, we can play them. You can copy these files out. One thing you should notice, though, is that all of these partitions are actually in a read-only state. We can't put files onto them because they're protected by a read-only mechanism. So it's kind of a good way to do all of that information within an EO1 file. So that's EW Mounter. It's pretty simple. You mount, you unmount, you can verify. So we'll just unmount this, we'll close it, and we'll get back to the new features of BlackLight. When you do unmount and close it, what it'll do is it'll take all of these windows and basically close them out for you. And you can see it's unmounted. So we'll close that. So that's EW Mounter. So some of the things we're going to talk about in BlackLight, we did do EO1 support. So this is true for both our Mac environment as well as our Windows environment. And what that means is if you have an EO1 image that has an HFS or HFS plus partition within it, you can parse that with BlackLight. So you simply take an EO1 image like you can see here in the window. I have a test EO1 image. I'll just go to the browser so you can see it. And what that had was a single partition which had an HFS plus partition within it. And BlackLight will simply take that EO1, parse it just as if it were a raw DD file or a DMG image. And just like any normal image, you'd be able to bring it in just like anything else. You select what you want to do in the pre-processing options, just as before. The only difference is now you're an EO1 image. One thing that you do have is when you go to the details view, for any image, in this case I'm going to talk about EO1s. I won't do it for the sake of our time for this, but when you bring in an EO1 image, because the MD5 is built into the header of the EO1 file, we have the ability to calculate and verify the disk hash. So in this particular example, if I were to click on this link here called Calculate Disk Hash, it's going to verify basically the hash of the EO1. So it'll calculate your image, and it'll tell you whether, just like the EW Mounter program did, whether it was verified or whether it doesn't verify because there's a problem. If it's not an EO1 image, so as an example, if it's a DMG, you have the ability just to calculate your hash, and I'll just show you because this one's a pretty quick one. You click on the link and it will calculate the MD5 and the SHA-1 value, the hash of the DMG. So if you use, say, DC3DD or any other tool to make an image, and you have a log file that has those hash values in it, which shows you what the hash calculation is supposed to be, you can verify it through here by basically calculating your hash and verifying it manually. So that's one of the things that we've added to this particular release as well. So that's pretty much it for the EO1 support within BlackLight and the EW Mounter. It's pretty simple in those terms. But some of the other things we did is we added, like Paul mentioned earlier, a lot of different image file supports specifically for the iOS versions. And one of the ones that we highlight is with Mobile Phone Examiner Plus. So you can take, in fact, if you download the latest version 4.3.0, I've been testing that for the last couple days when it was in beta and the final release. And you can see I actually have one of those images right here. And this happens to be of a 3G volume. And so this is an image that came in from Mobile Phone Examiner and simply brought it in. And this is a full disk image. You can see that basically I have the system partition here and I have the data partition. I'll just do the quick browser view. You notice we have our file system layout. I can even click on the iOS tab and get an idea of the SMS views within that. So we also will support, I mean, we've pretty much always supported iExam from day one, but we fixed some of the issues with the later versions of iExam. Jonathan Zdarsky's method, we've made some improvements with that, and we obviously added support in this version for Celebrite Mobile Phone Examiner. And in doing the fixes that we did, it also enables you, if you make, say, using Macquisition, an image, say an iPod, the fix that we did will allow you to import disk images that don't use the typical 512 bytes per sector, which is very typical for iPods. So if you have an image of an iPod and you weren't able to see it, now you will. So that was a pretty big under-the-hood type fix that we did with the R3 release. So some of the other things that we did that we haven't really highlighted but are really kind of important and good from a forensic standpoint, and the first thing I'll show is Snow Leopard introduced what Apple calls file system level compression. And it's on-the-fly compression for small files. And one of the things that is important to understand about that is when you deal with, say, a newer system like Snow Leopard, so I'll show you this image here of a Snow Leopard system, and you go to a browser and you see all of these files. Well, from the end user standpoint or the forensics user standpoint, you don't really have knowledge if is this file compressed or not. Now you can look at the metadata of the file and determine yes it is, no it's not. But I'll tell you that a lot of the other forensics tools that we use, we've been looking at, they don't identify a lot of the Snow Leopard issues with file system compression. So as an example, if I go to File Filter, and I'll just do P-lists because P-lists are one of the many things that take advantage of this inline compression. And I'll just pick one as an example. So this first one, you can see there is no inline compression. You can identify that when you look at the attributes in here. There's nothing, no flag that identifies that it's actually a compressed file. But when you go down to one, I know for like the font plist does, you can see here in our attribute list, you can see that it actually is an inline compressed file. So what that means is if you use previous versions of BlackLight and you were to look at this as just using it as this one as an example, this file you're not going to see anything in the native view. Basically you're going to see binary data and you won't be able to see it because it's compressed. So this version actually dealt with the inline file system compression, and so now we can see the native plist file which is in the native view here. And that affects a lot of files. It's not just P-lists. Apple is taking a lot of advantage of this inline compression, and it's even more so when you're going to start dealing with Lion when it's finally officially released. So we're pretty happy with the support that we put into R3 for this particular capability. And then some of the other issues that we dealt with. One of the things that was a really good feature that people loved with our Mobilize tool was the ability to go to a specific view from a search criteria. So you would put in a global search for a keyword, and you wanted to be able to see in a view where that keyword happened to be. So we've added that in this release too. And so I've already done a search just to give you an idea. So if I go to my test search and I look at what my search criteria was. So you'll notice I actually used one simple keyword. I'm looking for the word Harvard. And I didn't really care about anything else. I just wanted to search Harvard on this one particular image. You can see the image that was this iPhone of Josh Bennett. And if I go to my results, you can see I had basically 2 hits, 6 occurrences. So there was 5 occurrences in one hit, and it happened to be in my SMS database. So if I were to double click on that, it will take me to the SMS view, and it'll actually highlight, because I already have it done, the particular Harvard keyword that I was searching for. So if I come back to, say, my test search, and I can say type dynamic text, you can see that it highlights, there's my Harvard keyword that was typed in at some point on the phone. So the search criteria is pretty good in the sense that it will work across all of the different views. So anytime you go to your content search and you have your hits here, by double-clicking on that relevant hit, it'll take you to the specific view that that hit was in. So that's a new feature of R3 as well. And since we were talking about Josh Bennett's iPhone, one of the other things that is continually coming up that people ask us for is how are we dealing with encrypted iOS support? Well, R3 dealt with that in the sense that, and I don't have one specifically to show you, but the only thing that's going to happen is if it's an encrypted backup from an iPhone, when you plug that in, it will instantly identify that the phone was encrypted, and it'll throw up a dialog box saying, hey, this phone has an encrypted backup. Do you know the password? And it'll give you a password dialog box. If you know the password, you type it in, it will unencrypt the data for you and then display that within your typical Windows. So we've added quite a bit of support for encrypted iOS devices. And then last but not least, one of the few things that we started tweaking was our ability with internet search. So obviously we support the 3 main browsers on Mac, which is Safari is #1, Chrome, and Firefox. So as an example, I have a Chrome image here, and if I actually go to the internet logs and just show you this real quick, you notice that basically I'm showing you my history, basically downloads, cookies, bookmarks, cache. So if I click on the cache, you can see how much faster it is in actually processing the cache. The other thing that we've done is if you're in the native view and you click on a file and go to, these are all bad examples. There's an example of a JPEG of a bike. So we basically do an inline view of what's in cache. And so we're continually improving these particular views and what we're doing. So the previous version, the R2 release, you couldn't do an inline version of this. It would open up a secondary window. And so just to highlight some of the underlying core feature changes that we're doing, this is one of them. So that's really it for the R3 release. This was a quick release. We basically had a development cycle of about a month and a half and then about half a month worth of testing to push out really what we felt was very important, what our customers were asking for with really the images, and then a couple of tweaks here and there. So that's all I have. I guess we can turn it over for questions at this point. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then go back to the presentation view. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them away, and then we'll try to endeavor to answer them.
Great, thanks, Drew. The only question so far is regarding a couple more formats people are interested in, Parabens format.
Yeah, we currently do not support Parabens device seizure image format. That hasn't been highly requested. Doesn't mean we won't support it, but it just means that we need to basically kind of rank it within our roadmap of priorities and put it in there. So at some point I will tell you that we will support it, we just don't currently.
Great. So a couple questions about, or comments I should say, about the next release. We've got one coming in the fall. It'll be much more robust than this in feature requests. Reporting is a big part of what we're going to address. So please continue to give us feedback with regards to reporting and also regards to testing. Let us know any features that you have seen or want in BlackLight, want us to improve. We can only make this product better with your help. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks for everyone's time today. And look for us on social networks. We obviously try to update our blog pretty frequently with tips and trips on Mac forensics, iOS forensics. But again, you can always reach us directly as well via support@BlackBagTech or our phone number 408-844-8890. Thanks everyone for your time today. We look forward to touching base with you in the fall, if not sooner.